Here we go. So, just to begin our sit, allowing the sound of the bell to find us where we are, to meet us where we are. Noticing how the sound just gently fades away, revealing the silence behind it, underneath it. Yet there's an aliveness that's here with us as well. Can we tune into what's happening around us, whether it's sounds or movements, noises? Just open and receptive to any noises, any sounds. Allowing them to meet us and pass through. And bringing our awareness a little bit closer to find the breath. Noticing our breath where we feel it the most in the body. And just following the breath, so observing it neutrally, allowing it to move in and out the body in its own way. No right or wrong way of doing this, just doing our best to focus solely on the breath. On breathing. Noticing how on the exhale the body settles into this space. The body softens. And we might bring our awareness to any tensions or discomforts in the body. And directing our breath into those areas, softening and letting go on the exhale. Can we sense any tension in the brow, forehead? In the cheeks, in the jaw, in the teeth? In the lips, the nose? Just breathing into those areas and softening on the exhale. The same with the neck, the throat, the shoulders. Letting go. Releasing any tension that's built up from the day. the chest, the belly, any tension in and around the lower back or the hips. Breathing in and out of these areas, or breathing alongside any tensions. And just softening, just relaxing around them. And the same for the thighs. Giving ourselves permission just to let go of any tension. Knees, calves, shins. And feet, feeling the contact of our feet on the floor. Can we soften the toes, the sole of the foot? And coming up to the hands, letting go of any tension in the hands, in the fingers. Up through the forearms, through the biceps, into the shoulders, and back up into the head where we started. Maybe that there's still some tension, still some discomforts in the body. We may have aroused them through that body scan. Can we breathe alongside that experience? That right now, this is how our body feels. Can we perceive the sensations only and not get lost in any stories? Just being totally present with the unfolding, constantly changing field of sensations. Now, we don't have to think about this. This is something we can feel. If we had no thoughts, then we would still perceive sensation, the sense of this body. And just take in 2 or 3 deeper than normal breaths. Breathing in deeply, softly, gently, fully into the belly. And sighing out the mouth if that feels good. And whenever we're comfortable to do so, beginning to open the eyes and let in a little bit of light. Aware of this field, the field of vision of objects. And that we don't have to try to see. There's just images, and it's vision arriving. Same as sound just arises by itself. Vision and sights arise by themselves. Sensations arising by themselves. And I'll just give a short talk on today's topic, and then we will continue with our practice. But I encourage us to bring the awareness of this landing practice into the talk with us, aware of the words but not fixating on them, aware of sensations, aware of any commentary that we add, and mindful listening. And today I want to talk about one of the attitudes of mindfulness, or one of the principles of mindfulness is non-striving. And it's perhaps easier to talk about non-striving by first talking about striving. And striving perhaps being, well, this form of striving, separate from wanting to do better. Not that kind of striving, not striving for a good life. This is kind of striving I'm talking about now, is how the mind wants the next moment more than this one, wants some other condition to be here, or a present condition to not be here. As though the next moment has something that this one doesn't. And this is the striving mentality that we all live with, we all exist with, and is quite often exacerbated and manipulated through advertising and social media and all sorts of external influences, telling us that we will be happy once we've got this thing, once we've bought this, once we've experienced this or got rid of that. Whatever it is, there's a tendency, and we might actually call this the mind. This is mind activity, revolves around this very act of striving. So the only problem with that is that mindset carries on with us. So if we're constantly pursuing the next moment for happiness, for peace, then we're taking this sense of non-peace or unease into the next moment, It's like the carrot on the stick ahead of us, and never quite getting there. We may have moments where we enter a peaceful state, or we get what we want, or we get rid of what we don't want, and it brings around a sense of peace with it. But it's very conditional. It's very temporary. And we've all probably experienced that when we've bought something new or waited for something to arrive. And it's never quite how we imagined it to be. So non-striving then, as one of the fundamental attitudes of mindfulness, is this ability to let go of, or to recognize that mental activity, that busyness of mind, that commentary or underlying attitude that says, I'll be happy when, that sells our happiness to our imagination, to the future. And we even do it quite often when we enter a meditation. We sit, and all of a sudden we're seeking something else. Oh, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to get into some altered state of mind. I'm going to produce something. Again, the mind overlooking what's already here. So the non-striving attitude of mindfulness teaches us to be more present. It helps us to recognize that life is what it is, here and now, and we suffer according to how we either want this moment to be different than what it is. Well, yeah, we want something from it, or we want to get rid of something from it. It's the same thing. We've got this moment, and then we've got our mind's version of this moment, or our mind's prescription of how this moment should be. And this is normal, but it's helpful to recognize it. It's helpful to become aware that this is happening. And it's difficult. We don't always see it. Sometimes we're so absorbed in that we can't see it. But this is what the practice is for. This is what meditation is for. This is what offering ourselves to stillness is for. We see that when we stop, when we give ourselves permission to be here, we see the momentum of the mind carries on like a wave. But eventually, if we stay here, if we stop stirring things up, if we're able to do that, if we're able to remain present and continually bringing our awareness back to this moment, to this breath, we gradually get better and better at seeing the activity of the mind and how it pulls us away from this. And an interesting experiment, if you're able to play with this little pointer or not, is just imagine if for 1 second we could just completely stop thinking. Imagine if that was possible. What would we need? So, as much as we'd love it to be true, we can't quite do that with the mind. We may fluke it for a second or two, but generally speaking, there's going to be what I would call incessant mind activity. So the trick then is not to take it too seriously, is to observe it as a byproduct of being human, as this sense of thinking, as much as we have a sense of sight or feeling, smell. There's this existence of a mind that lives in the world of words. It's not actually the world. The word is not the thing. It's only ever talking about stuff. And if we're unconscious, then we fall into the trap of thinking the words are the things. The concepts are more real than the objects. Of course, we need language. We need it to survive, to communicate. But if we're so fixated on it, then we're at the subject of whatever the mind wants to produce in any given moment. And as we know, the mind is really good at producing negative experiences. It's always got a tone of fault finding, or quite often it's got a tone of fault finding about it. It's a little bit more prone to focusing on what's not right. and it can make any situation into this could be better. Its job almost is to do that. We have a form of criticism that lives in the mind, and it can be pointed towards ourselves or the world or others. And it's okay, I guess, if we're aware of it and allow, a little tap maybe, or maybe try it this way, maybe try it that way. But quite often we get overwhelmed and we get walloped by this criticism instead of just tapped by it. Again, part of the practice is to recognize this noise that interrupts our stillness. So I shan't discuss this much more, but we will go into another practice. We'll continue with this mindful listening into spaciousness, into the spaciousness that's already here. And we'll use the beautiful sound of this bell just to meet us again where we are, wherever that is right now. Are we already trying to run away from an experience or to pursue an experience? I'm seeing the effortlessness of hearing that sound of the bell or my voice. And you can have your eyes open or closed for this. Can we notice immediately the difference between the sound itself and the mind's version of the sound? Dropping labels and just receiving that energy of sound. In the field of sound around us, in our own rooms, in our own homes. Maybe it's noisy or quiet. It's easy to feel like sounds can be distracting, but they're simply arising and falling instantly. And if we cease to label them, then they fall away by themselves. And can we bring that listening even closer? Can we hear the sound of any mental activity? Might sound like commentary. We may even hear ourselves say, "Oh, I can't hear any mental activity." That is the mental activity. We may hear, "Oh, a little bit confused by this, I don't quite get it, or I'm not quite there. That is mental activity. You may get lost in images, in future, past, planning, imagination. And that is mental activity as well. Some of it's obvious, some of it's subtle. We're not trying to stop it, not needing to start it. Just seeing if we can possibly lend some awareness to that field of mental activity. Sinking below thoughts into the energy of our attitude or intentions. Perhaps we're seeking something. And we're wanting something other than what's here now. Any time if we get lost or wander off into past or future, we can always encourage ourselves back home to the breath, or back home to this awareness of breathing. And this can become a sanctuary for us in our meditation. It's always here, it's always present. It's constantly changing, but always now. Can we notice the difference between the direct experience of breathing and the word breath? Again, noticing any mind activity that arises. If we feel we've been pulled into another dimension, whether it's the past, the future, whatever, none of that's wrong. The content is not important. Can we invite ourselves back to this experience of breathing? All we have to do is sit and just be here experiencing the breath. It may feel like we're riding the breath, riding that inhale, noticing the beginning, the middle, and the end. And the beginning and the middle and the end of the exhale. And we don't need to change anything about our experience. Can we allow that striving mind just to stop? Or can we just tune into it, noticing it? Experiencing that. What is it like to want this moment to be different? And again, if we get sucked deeply into the past or into the future or into some form of judgment or criticism, some form of analysis, our mindfulness allows us to acknowledge that, to recognize it. And then we gently return back home to this breathing body. If we're having difficulties, then noticing that this is what it feels like to experience this difficulty. And whether we can connect with this now or not, it's quite evident that after some time, the mind makes an issue out of anything. There's actually nothing wrong with this except our thoughts about it. And thoughts aren't the enemy, they're just a natural part of this experience. It's when we believe in them without question. Just spending a few moments in silence, reminding ourselves that there's no wrong turns. There's no way of messing this up. It is what it is. And as we draw towards the end of the practice, just taking a moment, in this moment, to reflect, to drop in the question, how was that practice? How did it go? How did that practice go? And then listening to what the mind says about it. oh, that went well, or oh, I didn't quite get into that, or whatever. That was relaxing, that was frustrating, it was painful. That's the mind activity we're talking about. It sneaks in to this sense of our self being here. It's just a part of our experience. It's a script. And this labeling habit of the mind, this judging habit, comparison, is the most superficial layer to our experience. Words can be beautiful, of course, but only when we see what they're pointing at. And the word now is not this. And so whether this practice has gone as planned, as expected, whether it's been, or whatever the mind says about it, letting all of that just slip away into the past. Having a moment, maybe placing the hand on the chest or taking the opposite hand, feeling that sense of connection, of warmth, of touch. And sending that warmth, radiating that warmth around us to those we know and love, to those we don't know yet. And reaching those who may be desperately in need of some warmth or touch right now. And then taking that moment just to savor that warmth and touch ourselves. Allowing the sound of the bell just to signal the end of the practice. And in our own way, making ourselves back into the group,